Welcome back to another episode of the Lightdrop. Two friends just talking creativity and beyond. My name's Jamil.
And my name is Jeff.
So, last week, if you tuned in, Jeff was telling me about this movie called The Boy and the Heron. Visually, he said it was very, very inspiring. It's a Studio Ghibli movie, so a lot of good credibility there with the directors and everything. And yesterday, I went ahead and saw it, and my sentiments were actually very, very different than Jeff's. So we haven't talked about it yet, but Jeff, I'm intrigued to see how something like that kind of works, with perspective or preferences or whatever it is to have made you a huge fan of it and a lot of people a huge fan because it's got a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. But
Yeah.
myself personally, The Boy and the Heron, I wasn't a huge fan.
hmm
So let's backtrack to last week. Tell me again what it
Yeah.
was that
That
excited you
captured
so
me.
much about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a very uh first of all, it's a movie like that hitting theaters. I just wanted to go out and support the studio. I mean, showing that an animated film from from a different country can do so well in the box office. That was just like my first goal. Second thing was that this was the director's final film. I didn't know about that, but I know that he's getting at a certain age, so he's probably about to definitely quit or just do something else. But so I just wanted to go see his final film. Um, but the thing that really captured me was the visuals. I knew that I was going to see some very interesting metaphors, and since I watched it with subtitles, uh, I wasn't really reading the storytelling because I was like trying to concentrate because I've never actually watched a movie on a big screen with subtitles like that. So for the most part, honestly, man, that's what it was. It was the visuals that captured me. I think if I go back and I actually like pay attention to the story a bit more because I'm watching it for a second time, I might get a different read on it. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. See, I visually I'll agree with you. Visually I thought it was great, of course. I think just the colors, the themes, it was very cohesive. It was good to look at, and it was definitely like just knowing what goes into animation like that. I was definitely able to appreciate that aspect of it. I didn't realize that I for some reason I thought that you also saw the dubbed version. I ideally in an ideal situation I would have wanted to have seen the subtitles version as well,
hmm
but at my theater the only one that was available at the time that I was able to go was the English dubbed. So there's a chance that that may have had something to do with the storytelling aspect of it because that's really what did it for me as far as kind of checking me out um
mm
was the storytelling, like it was it just didn't come together for so let's compare notes, I guess, because again, like
I get that.
what I was thinking of after I left the theater was how many people, at least online and of course from talking to you, and like love this movie. And I was just like, I did not like that wasn't it for me. And it made me think, like, all the conversations that we have about we had I think it was last week where we were talking about anime, maybe it was a couple weeks ago, where we were
hmm
talking about anime and how just the nature of anime, they can go so many different places, so many different visual styles, just makes it so inspiring, right? If you're
Yeah,
someone who just loves to dive into those worlds and just thinking about, other avenues that those places can go and stuff like that. So leaving the theater, I was like, this is interesting how there could be like this polarizing, like, opinion of like
Yeah.
normally I'm on the side of like, no, that was good. Like I could find some places to really kind of appreciate, but this time I was definitely like, maybe I am the outcast or like the outsider who's like, I did not like it. And I think the big reason, like I said, was the storytelling. So you saw it, with subtitles with the
Yeah.
original language and
Yeah.
everything, which I definitely will agree is the way to see it. I saw it dubbed. So um maybe let's start with like our interpretation of the story, because it was not a straightforward story. It wasn't like
Hmm.
there's definitely a
I
lot
get.
of room for interpretation
Yeah.
with what was going on, some of the themes that were going on.
Yeah.
So let's start there. Like my um interpretation of just the plot, right? We won't even get to the story, right? Even the plot in some ways is up for interpretation. This
Hmm.
young man, I think he's about 12 years old or so, he loses his mother um in a fire, and I think it was like 2 years go by, and his father essentially remarried
Yeah, that was
his
weird.
mother's sister,
Yeah, that was a
and
very weird
the boy,
thing.
yeah, and the boy didn't know that the boy had never met his mother's sister, so he didn't
Hmm.
even know that that was his aunt, from what I gathered, right? So he's got his quote unquote new mother, who's actually his aunt, who's pregnant with this soon to be new brother,
Yeah.
and they go to live at um her his mother's like childhood home, or like a family home, this home that had been in their family, his mother's side of the family, for years and years. And when he arrives, there's this blue heron that's kind of um showing an interest in him,
Yeah.
flying towards his window when he's in his room, and like knocking on the window trying to get his attention and everything. And and at some point in time, his aunt ventures into the woods, and there's this mysterious tower that we get introduced to at some point in the beginning of the movie, and come to find out that this tower was actually like some kind of meteor
Yeah.
or something,
Oh
some
yeah. Yeah.
alien meteor that like crash landed. And
Yeah.
the the great uncle of his mother and his aunt, there, so I guess it'd have been either their uncle or their father or something, was uh was someone who was very intrigued in this tower, dating back to years and years ago. And strange things happened. The boy ventured into the tower looking for his aunt, and then the tower was kind of like this portal in between different worlds that also transcended time as
Mhm.
well. And there was mythical creatures in some of the worlds, and he ends up meeting his mother when his mother's the same age as him. So there's that. Um, but I don't know. I think kind of what I'm getting at is there was also like, just from the standpoint of the plot, not even the story, of like the reason behind all of this, like just the plot was kind of seemed to be um a little unfocused.
Yeah.
Did you get that at all?
Yeah. I think there were some aspects of it that I thought of. The part that like got me was when the um the boy was introduced to the sister, and then the sister or the aunt was like touch my stomach, this is gonna be whatever. It was like a weird thing. But there's also certain things that I believe were just maybe put in because maybe they were custom or something, because this story is about parts of the story. For everyone who knows, is that, or anyone who doesn't know, is that the director puts in a lot of pieces from the war that he experienced when he was a kid. So there's always those themes running in the background, talking about like just democracy and being a rebel and everything like that. So some of those things that I saw, I knew that like I wasn't gonna get some of them because I knew they would just be too deep for me to even understand. Um,
Even
but yeah, so
culturally,
like the story, the things that were happening within the tower, I believe it was just a meaning for something else to get the boy to figure himself out. So I wasn't like for me, I wasn't looking into it too much. Like I was just like, this is cool,
yeah,
and
yeah, that's
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
but
that's kind of where I went to. I think, by the way, also, if you're interested in watching this movie, we still haven't t- everything I just talked about, everything Jeff just talked about. We still haven't spoiled this movie at all,
hmm
for you with everything that I mentioned. Um, honestly, it'd be kind of hard to spoil
yeah,
for spoilers in this movie because there's a lot going on. Um, there's definitely a lot to interpret on your own with this movie. And again, that was one of the reasons why I was excited to talk, still excited to talk to you about it today, was again just because when we think about work that we've created, right? I know that you do a lot of graphic design stuff. I myself, do some creative writing as well, music. We're artists. We can appreciate these things. We even talked about, I think it was last week also, how we see a lot of the same stories, right? Just kind of like retold in different ways, and people aren't necessarily, um, you know, empowered to go off the beaten path and create something kind
yeah,
of head scratching and stuff. So from that perspective, I definitely did appreciate the movie, but there were like some aspects of it that just from like a standard storytelling kind of perspective just left me very confused and very kind of like, you know, was this necessary? Was this needed? There was a lot of yeah, there was a lot of that going on.
hmm
I think what it almost felt like there were several themes that were kind of trying to weave together, but it felt like they were just kind of separate.
hmm
Like like for example, there were some like mythical creatures and there was like this lore that the characters mention about certain things, but then we don't hear about it again. And it was like kind of confusing to where like, wait, did that actually even have anything to do with the story? Did I miss something?
yeah,
Like is there
yeah.
something else that kind of happened? But you know what it kind of reminded me of um was Interstellar with the Tesseract.
Yeah,
Like where they kind of like transcend time and
yeah.
space and everything.
All right, all right, all right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that was yeah. I get that. I think there's from from the standpoint of that. There's definitely there were definitely a lot of stories and themes within the story that was just well. I will ask you this. Well, sorry to finish that last thought that we're clashing, but I will ask you this. So since you watched it in um, and dubbed, do you think that knowing the voice characters, because for people who don't know, some of the characters were voiced with like celebrities, so like Christian Bale,
yeah.
Batista. Do you think that recognizing those voices kind of broke it a bit more? Like,
Well, I think it would have if I had known ahead of time, but to be fair, I didn't recognize any of the voices um until I did. And that was until like closer towards the end of the movie.
okay,
I think it was the character that Dave Dave Bautista was voicing was like, I was like, oh, that's Dave Bautista. But the other ones, like I think Willem Dafoe is in it. You said Christian Bale was he? He
I
was
I believe, yeah, maybe that was just something.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, might. I'm not sure. I know Willem Dafoe was in it. There are a couple of yeah, and then there are a couple other like names that I definitely recognize, but I didn't know going into it that they were voicing it, so I didn't necessarily recognize their voices during. So um yeah, that wasn't what took me out of it. I think it may have though if I had known
Hmm.
ahead of time that like because like I said, I definitely would have preferred to have watched it in its original language
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah.
Um, but it also makes me wonder, you know, movies that get, movies that we make in this country, blockbusters and stuff like that, that get seen in other languages. Um, how often does that kind of get lost in translation? Like this isn't the first time that there's been a movie that I've seen, even if I haven't seen the movie, but I've just seen the commentary around the movie where some people loved it, some people didn't.
Hmm.
I'm wondering if that's typically one of the reasons when if
Yeah.
there's like this disconnect with whether it be a foreign movie or whatever.
Yeah. That reminds me of movie Parasite. It's that Korean film,
Yeah,
and with those films, even like, I mean, most the manga is read differently. I'm pretty sure like storytelling is done differently in other countries. So it would be interesting because I know a lot of people, um, you know, a lot of times they'll show posters that are completely different for a release somewhere else. So I'm wondering if like the edits are different, so that people can still get the storytelling aspect in a different country. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just I think all of this is just very interesting. That with I wonder if that's an ongoing theme with I think Studio Ghibli's Japanese. I'm not sure. Uh, don't
I'm
quote
not
me on
sure
that.
either.
Yeah, I'm not sure either,
I'm not
but
sure
I
either.
wonder if
Let me
that's the
look it up.
ongoing thing for like storytelling over there, is that the movies and the films or whatever the shows have so many things going on. Like you'll see the game shows, right, where it'll be like, somebody trying to like a server is trying to take food to a table, but the floor is like, I don't know, falling apart or something. Those crazy game shows that we'll see. I wonder if that's just a thing. It's like, let's put as much information in this show or this movie as much as we can.
Yeah,
For
it's Japanese. Yeah, I mean, that's kinda what I saw too, is like, because like I said, visually, it almost what it almost felt like? It almost felt like they found plot points as excuses to create like they had the visuals in mind
before,
prior to,
yeah.
like, the plot, and they were like, "Oh, how can we, like, weave in a way to, like, show this concept or to show this idea?"
Hmm.
Um,
And another thing is the movie is actually based on a book, so I'm wondering how
Interesting.
close um, they got to the actual. Yeah, how do
That's
you
the
live?
thing too. Remember we were
Yeah,
talking about with books is like with writing, how there's no hiding behind writing. When you're reading a book,
yeah.
you can't hide behind the visuals and everything because everything's being interpreted by you have no control over how the reader is interpreting visually what you're saying. So um to that point, is it even like does it even matter? Was this film even made for the story,
Yeah.
or you know what I mean? Like, did he even care? Was he more kind of focused on just kind of like showing these different like themes and visuals and leaving this kind of visual impact with, because
Yeah,
like you said, there was that scene with like a lot of crazy imagery, like
the frogs.
animals crawling, yeah, the frogs and animals crawling over, and like animals morphing into different animals, and
Yeah,
like you said, like floors disappearing and so on and so forth. So it's like, you know, you can't do that stuff with I mean you can with visual effects, obviously, photoreal stuff, but when it's like 2D, they can really they can make it literally however they want, like
hmm,
style wise. It's like a
trippy.
different kind of freedom. Yeah, trippy.
Yeah, no, it's a gift and a curse. And when I believe when people went to go see the film, the people who really enjoyed it were expecting that because they knew it was,
Yeah.
because I've seen a couple of their films. I've seen actually like most of them, and I've rewatched them a couple of times. So when I think back on it, that's always the thing that I'm leaning on whenever I see these films. I'm like, oh, like this is going to be um, a bunch of interpretations, and there's going to be unnecessary things that are put into the story. But that's just it, because I'll watch a decent amount of anime, um, and you know even like watching Dragon Ball Z growing up. Um, it's very linear and it's very easy. It's kind of um, interesting how some of those some of the ones that we all grew up with, like Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, they're very linear. It's like one goal, you're trying to do something, whatever it is. And then there are these other ones, big ones that like Studio Ghibli. Would it have worked if it was like,
On
as a
point.
film? Yeah, if it wasn't like so different. If it was just like typical, relatable things that we were used to, would it have blown up as much as it has? Because a lot of people expect, you know, like, yeah, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
When they
yeah,
see their films, they're just loud and
yeah. I
impactful.
think I definitely, I don't I like the conversations that we have, um especially over the last several weeks, several episodes, because I'm finding that, as we kind of dive into these things, it's like we're discovering these concepts ourselves, like as we talk about them. Like I know in the past we talked about um like interest and enthusiasm, and how usually if you lack interest or enthusiasm in something, then you can gain it by just kind of researching it, and
Hmm.
learning more about the history, and just kind of getting a better understanding for you know its creators, and why there's other people that enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I was very conscious of that. Even after I left, I was like, that was weird. Like I didn't. My first reaction was like, I did not like that. That was not a good plot. That was not a good plot. That was a good storytelling. It was all over the place. This, that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I was still conscious. I was like, um, but I also understand how hard it is to make a movie like that, um, in any capacity, the undertaking and everything. So I am, um, and especially knowing that you loved it, and there's
Hmm.
so many other people that loved it. Um, I'm kind of like, curious to take up our own advice, right? Our own. I don't want to be a hypocrite.
Yeah.
And I want to try that. I want to kind of look, maybe do a little bit more research, on the history of Pseudo Ghibli, um, the director. Maybe I'll kind of look into kind of, that aspect of things, and see if that kind of changes my perspective at all.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I wanna do that to see, yeah, like I said, to see if that'll change my perspective, because if it does, I'm sure it probably will.
Hmm.
Um, it'll just kind of be proof of what we've been talking about, and that'll kind of be very encouraging moving forward. If I ever come across something that my initial gut reaction is just like, personally, thought that that was trash. I thought that that was garbage. Like, what is this?
Yeah,
I can make something better, blah blah blah. But like,
yeah,
I want to practice. To have that
yeah,
perspective. It's like, I think that that's really how you become like a really good artist, a really
mhm,
good creative creator, is to be able um to see that in everything, and to
yeah,
understand the intricacies that go behind not just the not just basing everything on like the finished product, but really knowing like the story of the story of the
yeah,
story.
yeah, right. And that reminds me of a great quote by Kobe Bryant. It's be a student of the game. So that's the same thing. When I went in and watched The Boy and the Heron, I brought my sketchbook because I was like, even though I couldn't see, I wanted to have something there where I could like sit down and and as I was watching it, I was like, you know, there were definitely things that I did not understand, but at the end of the day, I was there to study the film and what are the things that captured me that I could pull from um, just being a student of like visual things that I try and see just implement into my everyday. It's just an ongoing practice. So no, I definitely get that.
Yeah, see, our perspective already was different going into watching it because, like you said, you went into it looking to be inspired,
Hmm.
looking to find new visual concepts and stuff like that. And I definitely was going into it like it's about to be a good movie. This is about to be, a good story. This is about to be like something that I'm like, oh man, that was, I'm gonna remember that story, that storytelling kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
thing. So that's what I was basing it on. Um, but yeah, if I was going into it the way you did, then I would imagine that my sentiment would have been the same for sure. Like, um, just visually, like it was nice. It was really cool. I mean, yeah. Student
yeah,
of the game. That's a great kind of quote
yeah.
to
And to implement, right? I mean,
yeah.
it's just it's an ongoing thing. It's something I've been thinking about a lot recently. Was just that I'm not gonna get constant education from the things that I see and do without approaching it that way, where it's like whatever whatever I'm watching, whenever I'm washing dishes, if I have an opportunity to think about something in a creative way, that is my education right there. It's like, I'll read a magazine and I'll look at like, you know, why are these things aligned, and asking myself that question, because unless I'm in that mode, most of the time, you just forget. You just end up being passive about the things that you're watching, or you know,
That
it's just
mode is just all that mode is being present. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
that's just being present,
yeah,
It's like you said, if you're watching stuff passively, um, you know, like a zombie, right? Like
hmm,
to put it bluntly, you know what I mean? All
yeah,
this stimulation, all
true.
this stuff. Like back in the day it was TV, cartoons. So you would turn on the TV and just watch stuff for 2-3 hours, watch whatever it was, sitcoms and stuff. Now it's TikTok with an endless feed,
Hmm.
YouTube shorts, endless feed, right? You just kind of, you're not even present, to be
Yeah,
fair. You're watching it, but you're not there. Um, and there's really no growth from that. It's kind of like making a conscious decision before you do anything, whether it's getting ready to watch a movie or getting ready to read a book or go to work, wash the dishes. It's like if, you know, being present enhances enhances that and actually allows you to take away something from every moment, just being in the moment. Um, and when you said you took your sketchbook to the theater, that made me think of like my mental images of you like sketching. in the theater, and then somebody sees you, and there's like it's like the equivalent of you trying to like record it. They're like, this man is trying to bootleg. He's trying to
You
bootleg the
steal it.
movie.
You steal it from
He's
Studio Ghibli. He's gonna sell the sketches.
yeah, exactly. He's bootlegging like a like a what are those sketch artists in like courtrooms
Yeah,
that like
that's funny. I wonder
sketch
how.
out the movie.
I wonder if that's like how people. That's how like bootlegging started. Like during like the Greek Empire or something. You know, it's like you came here to watch a play, but you're writing down the notes, reciting it back
Yeah,
somewhere else for a
exactly.
bigger price or something.
Or to like a or to a like an opera or a concert or something, and you're just like
Like,
you're like writing the music down, and then going to another country where they never heard it and just playing it.
yeah,
Like, I mean, that you're probably right. That's how
that'd be
like
so
ideas
funny.
get quote unquote stolen, quote
Yeah.
unquote. Um, but yeah, I think when you're you know to go back to what we were talking about with being president and your like intention going into seeing something, it's like my intention is to take something from this with from the artistic side of things or from the storytelling side of things and this is what I want to get out of this, you know
Mhm.
that's really the only way you're going to get something out of it. If you kind of go into watching something um the way I did, right, was like more passive, just kind of like, oh, this is about to be like this is about to be good and this is about
Mhm.
to be like great or whatever. Um and that expectation isn't met, then it's just criticism, 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 you know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's like I said,
Looking at it from a
yeah,
different perspective. I mean, yeah, it's it's definitely something that's helped out a lot with books. Even if you're reading a book, before you read a chapter, ask yourself what you want to get from it, and you'll most likely find it. Uh, Film the same
mhm.
way, and it's just something new because we've said it before. We said it in the last episode. You're not gonna you're not gonna be able to um, unless you're actively looking for those signs, those lessons, whatever it is that you're doing from your artwork, from you know the things that you have around you. You're not gonna get that like immediate feedback unless you're paying attention
Not
to
gonna
it.
find you can't find something you're not seeking.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
you have to actively be thinking about it, and I mean that's why
be
it's
present.
important. Yeah, to be present. I mean to be intentional because
Yeah, don't just be a mindless consumer. you
sheep.
know? Yeah.
Don't be
Yeah,
sheep.
because that's the extent of it too, is like the flip side of things. If I was I mean, how many times also have you seen, let's say, for example, I was like a big, big, big Studio Ghibli fan, and they could do no wrong,
Hmm.
and it's like I went into it watching it, and it's like maybe I did have the same sentiment of like, oh, that story was off, but instead of me outright coming to you like I did, I was like, bro, I didn't like that. Like, I thought
Hmm.
that was whack. Like, maybe if I was going into it like, no, they can't, like, this is going to be amazing, Studio Ghibli can't do any wrong, then maybe I would have came to you and I've been like finding excuses like, oh no, maybe it was me. Like, we see that all the time too.
Yeah,
it's very much it's very much your, the perspective and the your point of view, um of anything that goes into that you have prior to consuming that information or that content, that really is what dictates your, what you think about it.
yeah. that confirmation biased. I mean,
Yeah.
I yeah, obviously being a fan of the studio, I walked in there and they could have had like, just birds talking to each other for 2 hours. I would have still sat there and like
Yeah,
been
you
like,
would have.
this is the greatest thing like that I've seen. So that is
Yeah.
definitely a thing. When you once you believe that you know this thing can't do wrong, then that's it. I was sold
Yeah.
immediately.
We see that in fashion a lot,
Mhm.
like the Yeezys, bro. I think those are the ugliest shoes of all time, the new
Yeah,
ones.
I haven't
But
even seen them yet. Are
but
they the
people
foam
are
ones?
you probably see you probably seen them. They look like tree roots, like on people's feet,
Mm.
like Crocs, but like
Oh yeah, yeah, but they're like formed onto the foot. Yeah,
yeah. But
yeah.
that just makes me think again, like anytime I've gotten criticism for like something that I've shown, like this very subjective criticism of like someone's like, oh, I don't like that, whether it be music, that's probably like for me, that's probably one of the bigger um mediums that I've had that experience with, where somebody might listen to it, oh, it's not for me, I don't like that, or like been more vocal, like that's not good. You're not gonna, no one else is gonna like that either.
Hmm.
And then on the other hand, like, oh, this is dope, this is nice, but people experience that with their writing, with their art, their painting, and it's like when you really kind of understand your own, like when you have that feeling towards other people's work, like the way I did or the way you did, then it helps you also to stay balanced when you receive feedback or praise for your work too,
Hmm.
which is very important, to not teeter, not teeter off of your balance and your footing just because someone said they hated your your work, or if a group of people come and say they absolutely adore your work and you can't do any wrong, to not let your ego blow up too much off of that either.
Yeah, that's true.
um because you can't continue to make impactful impactful work when you're off balance like that.
Yeah, that's true. Because
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of see that as once you build that, whether it's you're building a fortress or you have high praise about your work, then it's a very emotional thing where somebody will roast your work and you shattered, and I could see that as being like a terrible place to be. I mean, as a new artist, as a new designer, somebody says something about your work, it's
Yeah.
so and it's so important that you're guarding um that feeling, because it's at the beginning, it's like no one you don't know what you're doing. You're still figuring out a lot of stuff. So if you approach your work as hot or cold, and that's it, I mean it you're gonna end up stopping, right?
Yeah. And then it's,
Exhausted.
like I said, just remember the way you praise or criticize work is like from where you're coming from is just, when you understand that all that is just a reflection of you and your opinions, your biases, your understanding, of
Hmm.
the medium in the first place, right? I don't think there's anything out there that 100% of the human population
Agreed.
would find ugly,
Yeah.
yeah, or yeah, agree on. So it's like someone out there is gonna criticize it, someone out there is gonna praise it. It's just the way it is. It's got nothing to do with the work, actually, probably
Hmm.
90% of the time.
Yeah. That's true.
So yeah. So that was, yeah, man. That was
That was your
that's cool.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I'm glad that you actually didn't like it, because most of the people I've talked to, most of my friends, I have a friend. She has like 6 tattoos of like characters from the Studio
Oh,
Ghibli.
really?
So yeah, she's a big fan. So most of the people that I know, my circle, they're like they like the film. So it's very interesting that I got your perspective on that because when I when I usually watch movies, animation movies, I'm not paying attention to the script or the plot. I'm just like whatever looks cool, but thinking
Yeah.
about it in that way kind of makes me rethink of like the plot, like is this going the way I'm thinking or I'm expecting it to go or whatever it is. And if it's not going the way I'm expecting it to go, aside from the visual elements that are just can be very distracting, right? um, that's just a different way of analyzing a story. And is the plot going the way it's supposed to be going? Does it make sense? So yeah, no, like I said, I'm glad that you did not like it. And I feel like I've learned something from just this conversation.
100%. I feel like we both kind of revealed a lot from this conversation about what goes into praise, what goes into criticism, how it has probably nothing to do with the product.
Yeah.
Another thing that made me think of too was I don't I'm not a big movie person. Like I'm very much more like video games
Hmm.
um and stuff. So I don't watch movies often. My wife watches movies all the time. Um and so the last movie I saw prior to this one was maybe like 3 weeks ago or so, and it was on. I think it was on Amazon Prime. Can't remember what it was called, but it was like also very, very, very bad from the standpoint of like the storytelling and stuff.
uh,
But it was like the different kind of bad where it was like a cult classic, like
uh, like
C film kind of like vibe. You know
okay,
what I mean?
yeah,
Where it's like we watched the whole thing
yeah.
and we talked about it for like 3 days afterwards
Like what
because
is
it was
this?
like yeah, because it was like that was ridiculous. Like why would they do that? Like blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
like like just all these plot holes and stuff like that. Like it was an action movie, I think.
Hmm.
Like but it was just one of those movies where it was like it was almost so bad that it was good,
Hmm.
and entertaining, like
Yeah,
one of those kind of things.
yeah.
So it was almost like I was like my first reaction was to compare it to that because I left the studio, I left the theater yesterday after having watched this movie, um, and I was just very conscious of, that was what I couldn't get over was like a lot of the story and the plot themes and stuff. It just
Hmm.
left me very confused and like like the story didn't round out.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking back to that last movie. I was like,
Uh,
that last movie was also like had the same issues, but I enjoyed that other one more. But it had nothing to do with the visual. It was just because of like while we were watching it, we were roasting it. And it became like this fun kind of like memorable movie off of that.
yeah.
So it's like I said, the fact that I like that other movie more than this one from the standpoint of like my experience watching it. I should say that the fact that I would associate having a better experience watching that other movie versus this one still has nothing to do with the movie
Yeah.
and the content of the movie. It's just like what I started doing while we were watching it, and like you know we weren't in the theaters when we were watching it. We were home on the couch just roasting it, and like
Yeah.
so it was
There's a
all these other
conversation.
things come into play. Yeah.
Yeah, you could talk about it. That makes sense. That's interesting because I kind of feel like the same thing about Studio Ghibli being like kind of like a cult classic, like it has a following. So people who watch it talk to other people about it and they're like, "Oh, this is interesting." But I feel that like that for a lot of films where it's from, you know, back in the day, it being a cult classic, people I watch it and I'm like, this is so bad, but like my wife
You ever
likes
see
the same
Zombievers?
thing. Huh?
Have you ever seen Zombievers?
Oh man, that sounds so familiar. Zombie.
Zombievers. Watch Zombievers.
Okay, I'll have to look it up.
Great movie. it's it's a great, terrible movie.
That's how Gremlins. Have you ever seen Gremlins 2?
I think so.
Bro, like
I
that
mean,
that same kind of aspect where it's like what is going on? And the thing is obviously back then when those movies came out, they use like I don't know, robots or something a lot more, so it's very
like the
uh
animatronics.
yeah,
The
animatronics, so things are like
yeah,
melting and like weird skin boils and stuff. You will same thing. So I'll check out Zombievers because I like films like that where they're just like there was
just
no
dumbass movies.
yeah, Zombievers. Okay, adding that to the
Yeah,
list.
yeah, yeah.
Gotta,
You'll love that one. That'll I know for sure. Like, all right, man. Yeah, I think yeah, dude. I was excited to talk to you about this one today. I feel like I don't mind wrapping this episode up there. We have the holidays coming up, so we don't know 100% if we'll have another episode next week. Like well as we usually try to have an episode a week for you guys, but if we don't, then we'll see you again in the new year. Have a happy new year,
Happy New Year,
happy
y'all.
holidays, and thanks for watching or listening.
Yeah, and listening, whatever you're doing. And yeah, that's the pod. Peace.
Peace.